morning, everyone. I was thinking about the name that we put on the conference, Autonomous. Last year, we had a debate whether we were going to call it Convergence or Converge or Autonomous.
Good choice.
Yeah. And both were good choices. Last year when we came here, we talked about the convergence of tools, technologies, personas. But we always knew, heart of heart, that autonomy is a much, much bigger and a longer journey. And I think it's a journey that all the enterprises have to take either this year or next year or the next decade. I also think that this is like a moment where, like George said, that every enterprise has to figure out its own journey to autonomy. And it's a complex journey. It's not simple. But if I were to compare this to a previous moment, it's as significant as the migration to cloud. I think in all of IT and all of enterprise infrastructure, there have been several movements which have been strong, but none stronger than the moment that we are in right now. It's pretty strong. Many of you interact with us as data infrastructure provider, data quality, data observability. We've sold many products to you, and in many cases, you've come and given us tremendous feedback. We're extremely happy and glad that we get to work with some of these largest enterprises which do so much for the world. And we're very, very glad that we are able to partner with some of these largest enterprise organizations. Now, if you think of the scale of operation from a data perspective today, most of these enterprises are touching their data at least 1 trillion times a day. And why are they doing that? They're doing it because they're providing customer outcomes either for improving consumer experience, improving their operations, rationalizing marketing and advertising dollars. The analytics space just blew up in the last 20 years, and it's been a phenomenal movement to be part of and provide so much value. Coming into the conference, we always do a survey just because to make sure that we're not getting off of our own internal data, but we're also looking at the world for what really it is. So we went to CIOs, CDOs, and CTOs, and we asked what's the biggest source of your board pressure? And if you just reflect for a moment on what George was telling us, that the models are getting exceptionally capable, services will be done differently, and everything else that's associated with that. If you really look at where the board is asking questions from the leadership, is actually how are you going to support your AI initiatives? How are you going to reduce your costs? And how are you going to improve governance? Because those are the 3 critical areas in which people are spending most of their time. There are 2 options. Either you move towards autonomy or you maintain status quo. If you're going towards autonomy, you have a future. If you stay status quo, then you're going to get wiped out. And all the boards in the world, they're very, very aware of that. But where is the additional money going to come from? The money cannot come from thin air. It has to be brought down from the total cost of operations. And that is a theme that is reflected continuously in sort of the surveys that we did. The second question, which was more of a bait, and we wanted to find out where are people spending their money and what would they do if they got additional budget. And no surprise, everybody is trying to put more money in AI and ML initiatives. They want to modernize their infrastructure so that they are able to support the agentic ambition of the enterprise. And obviously, data quality. Last year when we were here, we talked so much about the readiness of data from an AI perspective. And the question that we posed for the last couple of years, starting with Gartner London in 2024, was that, is your data AI ready? And the answer that we've consistently gotten from everyone, overwhelmingly, is that the data is not ready. So what is the real situation? The real situation is that people are spending a lot of money, but not getting too much from their AI initiatives at the moment. So this was another telltale that, okay, this is this point, and we were surprised that it didn't come to 100%, but the tip of the iceberg is that the infrastructure cost has expanded too much. And data operations, they're increasing. Data is growing at about 30% year over year. More queries are being written. And this is all about human access right now. If you really ask whether the enterprises move towards an agentic future, the answer is it's on the journey, but very early part of the journey. And if the infrastructure costs are blowing up already, imagine what will happen when agents start pounding the same infrastructure 100 times or 1,000 times a day, as opposed to humans accessing dashboards and reports maybe a few times. And that's a world that is extremely scary because agents will require the same level of compute resources as humans do today. And so it's going to be a very expensive future for everyone. So we were not surprised with the result. We were just surprised that 4% people wanted to spend more money, and I could not figure out why. Now, George talked about, the capability of the model. Now, we believe that, yes, the models have become extremely capable, whether they are in open source or in closed source. We also figured out that, obviously there are domain-centric models which are coming up, and those models are extremely good. But if you look at the reality of the enterprise agentic capability, the gap is huge. And this gap is increasing at the moment because the model capabilities are rising faster than ever. And while there is obviously the ambition for the model companies to become more and more the part of the infrastructure that supports enterprise agentic versions, I think reality is also setting in. And the reality is that for diffusion of these tremendous model capabilities, you need the right enterprise architecture. You need the right enterprise infrastructure so that these models can be deployed in a safe, governed, secure, accessible environment, which does not exist today. So when we started looking at the problem ground up, we said, okay, what is really missing? And, if this gap had to be covered, or it can be covered in the next, say 3 to 5 years, hopefully sooner, what we figured out was that the compute and the runtime has a problem. There's just too much focus on, at the moment, GPU and the inclusion of GPUs in the infrastructure. But it's not just going to be GPUs. It's going to be CPUs plus GPU. It's going to be a completely different infrastructure in the next 5 years, where there's going to be a combination of these architectures, which will have to span across your cloud, on-premise, and SaaS, all of these different units. Agents and humans will have the same level of access. If Rohit is accessing reports, then Rohit's agents will also be accountable to Rohit, and Rohit is still going to be accountable to the enterprise to figure out whether those agents acted in the right way or not. And to think about the agentic enterprise, it's important to differentiate from the what and the how, which is asking a simple question, tell me where the documentation of this is. That's a great question. You get an answer, you're not wasting anybody's time. But the do, which is when tools have to take information or take action on behalf of your role in the enterprise, it requires the same level of governance, security, and identity, without which agents cannot operate. And I don't see an infrastructure which has the capability today, and hopefully in the next 5 minutes you'll get the clarity on how we can do it, but there's no infrastructure that provides that level of detail as of today. Access and connectivity. This is, again, a big problem. If you think about the last 10 to 15 years, I'm sure that all of you, bar none, have been involved in one kind of migration. Either the migration from the antiquated to big data to cloud, and cloud to wherever else you're headed now, which is essentially all different kinds of applications in the enterprise. The access and connectivity to all of these different data islands which exist in the enterprise is almost mandatory. We also think that, build time is completely disrupted. I'm sure that all of us have tried, some version of Claude or Codex, and it has provided tremendous, I would say to an extent, illusion that we can build everything and anything that we set our minds to. Of course, development has accelerated tremendously. But again, I go back to the question that, it is very easy to develop something. It's going to be equally complex and really hard to operate it reliably, scalably, with responsibility and governance, and making sure that somebody is accountable for those outcomes. So these application spaces will also completely change. But what you really need is the infrastructure that can run all of this in a way that is acceptable in the enterprise. And what we came to the conclusion was that, the data infrastructure or the infrastructure that's required to go towards this autonomous vision for the enterprise, it doesn't exist. And so that's sort of, what we are trying to, announce today. It's the autonomous data and AI platform that we will, just see in a few minutes. But it's a huge moment, and I think all the enterprises will have to figure out their reality, and they will have to adopt and, participate in this journey if they truly want to become agentic, and not just, based on where they are right now. Let's take a look. for far too long, in the last 10 years, everybody was told that, let's go and centralize our data. That, let's bring all of that into Databricks. Let's bring all of that into Snowflake. Let's take all of this into GCP, and let's go into BigQuery. The reality is that it's a 5-year project, and it has to be done in a very different way. Compute has to move to data, as opposed to data getting centralized and then all of us waiting for the agentic enterprise to start appearing. That's not going to happen. It's going to take too long. So when we started thinking about this problem that all your data, which is hybrid, cloud, on-premise, no matter where you run it, it actually requires a layer which is essentially the xLake compute. The cross-lake compute engine has the capability of computing all your data and all your agents with the level of security, enterprise context, governance, observability, explainability, and obviously accountability for actions across all of these different environments. And it's really important to reimagine the functions that you've been operating with today. And these functions are going to be extremely different from a data engineering perspective. Just as the build time for all software applications are changing, the build time for all these applications that you've ever built in the enterprise, that's going to change. It's going to be completely different. What's not changing, though, is the compute layer and the responsible, and completely managed runtime. And with this announcement, I'm also very happy to tell you that we're announcing the agentic runtime today. You will see a demo with Ashwin a little later, which will give the capabilities to all enterprises to run all of their agentic workloads in addition to their data workloads with the same level of identity, security, privacy, governance, control. And it's really important to think about that. Today, agents are getting developed in all kinds of frameworks, in LangGraph, in Crew. You name the framework, everybody has a choice. But who's actually running it? And where are you running it today? And does it have the right level of governance? And that's the question that nobody's thinking about right now. But you'll actually see a very futuristic demo on that whole agentic runtime when Ashwin comes on stage. Needless to point out, this is a super important point for us to kind of appreciate that this whole thing is going to work across your different ISV layers, your cloud layer, which may be holding data in S3. But there's also a very big architectural shift which has come on premise. For far too long, it was a combined or aggregated infrastructure where data and compute were forever together. But if you look at the innovation that's happening on the storage arena, where everything has now moved from aggregated storage and compute to disaggregated storage and compute, now it's possible to get the elasticity and the flexibility of the cloud on your on-premise infrastructure. Now, I think what currently many of you enterprise leaders are dealing with is that you have one stack over here, another stack over here, and a third stack, a completely different stack on the third platform. With the xLake platform, you can actually integrate all of these 3 stacks, and you don't have to have multiple software versions to process your data and AI anymore. You can do all of that with this interoperable piece of software, which runs across all of these different infrastructures. And many of you are already current users of all of these platforms. The goal for us is to essentially provide you options to interoperate with all of these technologies as well. And you'll see a demo for that in the next few minutes with Ashwin. But if I were to kind of summarize and then start handing it over to Ashwin for what we've built and how to demo that, we personally feel that models are ready. Both open source and closed source models, they are actually ready. It can be implemented in the enterprise. The problem is that the infrastructure is missing. It's not a question of intelligence, it's a question of how do you operationalize that intelligence. And the final thing, which is an important theme for us, is that it is going to converge. Business analysts, data engineers, operators, all of them must start, they're going to speak the same language, which they, by the way, already speak. It's called English, and they are going to speak the same language in the future too, and maybe other languages as models get more capable. We built it, the xLake compute, which is the runtime substrate for all of your data and AI workloads. The agentic runtime, where you're going to get all the agents running as successfully as your human access, analytics, and machine learning are running today. A headless mode, because there's going to be an interface which is going to be very different for the future, because we also believe that CLI interface for developers and our community is going to be important. So the entire xLake platform will be available as a tool for people to start using within their Claude or Codex infrastructure. So you'll see a very brief demo of that as well. And finally, all the business applications, they'll be reimagined completely. I think as George mentioned in his keynote, everybody is going to get measured not on the strength of the workflow, but on the strength of the outcomes that those workflows will eventually drive. And those applications can be developed within the xLake platform and can be deployed and run on the xLake platform, giving it access to all your data stores. So thank you very much. Looking forward to interacting with you for the rest of the day. Ashwin, come up.
All right, welcome to the second edition of Autonomous. And I'm truly excited to show you what we have been building for the last year. And I think, like George said and then Rohit said, is that, when we started the company and the journey till now, customers have always been asking us for automations. And now with AI, I think it is time that these automations can be delivered in the way that they were imagined, not rule-based, but intelligence-based. And to get this done, you actually need a few things working. And so for the last year, we have essentially been working on reimagining the entire stack with the goal that as you move towards an agentic future, you can actually deliver agents in the same way that how you deliver applications today. This has been a 20-year journey for you to essentially figure out how to build applications, how to code them, how to put a CI/CD pipeline, how to guarantee it, how to guarantee access, deploy it, who's responsible. And that infrastructure for agents actually does not exist. So the first thing that you need is flexible compute, right? You cannot be waiting for some permissions on getting more infrastructure, cloud, on-prem, different stacks, different technologies, different infrastructures. So xLake Compute is our version of how compute should be for the agentic future. What is xLake Compute? First thing, it's one platform across cloud, data centers, any imaginable compute that you can think of, you can run xLake Compute. And the way it works is that it abstracts every single infrastructure layer. So whether it is on-prem, on cloud, AWS, VMware, wherever you have capacity, right? You have capacity today, but it's not productionizable. So wherever you have capacity, you can run xCompute. And all your workloads, and what are these workloads? So there's data workloads, app workloads, agent workloads, and essentially sandboxes. Sandboxes where AI agents can actually work. All of these work on the same substrate with xCompute. And so the demo that I would like to show you is to show you how easy it is to bring infrastructure on board, right? What used to take hours, weeks to figure out how do you actually bring more compute. You have hardware on-prem, you have infrastructure on cloud. How do you actually, bring it on board? And so what we're going to see is how anybody, any customer, any enterprise on any infrastructure can bring xCompute on board. So I just play this and walk you guys through it. So the first thing that anybody needs to do is essentially go ahead and simply go ahead and ask for a cluster. The only requirement that you have for running xCompute is that you need to have some flavor of Kubernetes. We support all flavors of Kubernetes, on-prem, on-cloud, EKS, GKS, you can name it, and we support it. All you need to do, go ahead, figure out where do you want to run it. You can enable observability in one click. Review, your team can do this, you can do this. Fairly simple, completely UI-driven, really no terminal work to be done. And here, we're going to just start out a timer to make sure, of course, that I didn't meddle with the video, firstly. And the second thing is to see how long does it get for you to actually get xCompute work. Of course, I've sped it up a little bit. But this is all it takes for you to bring any infrastructure online. Petabyte scale, fully managed by xCompute, and that's it. 2 minutes, you have infrastructure online. As soon as you have infrastructure online, you just got new infrastructure. Which jobs are you going to run? Are you going to copy this data like how you do today? Are you going to do something futuristic? What we're going to do is going to go pick a job where it's running on any cluster. We're just going to rename it, figure out the new cluster that we deploy, say this is a job of certain type, figure out the infrastructure that you need, and that's it. right? So the job which was running on any other infrastructure, it can be on-prem, on cloud, you can just bring it back, and you can just run it right from the platform. Now, xCompute is going to figure out how much capacity is on that compute infrastructure environment. It's going to run the job, and in build, because we checked observability was in build, we now have all our observability capabilities we built over the years brought into the same platform where you can actually go into extreme detail of what actually run on your xCompute platform. So everything from metrics, drivers, time series visualizations, every single aspect of any application which was run on this platform is being captured in detail. You don't really have to move anywhere. So wherever your application is, you spin up a new environment in minutes and run it in one click. So this took about 5 minutes, and you can do this today. This is available today. The next thing I want to talk about is context. And I think this is an interesting topic because nobody is really sure what enterprise context means. Everybody thinks that you can put a bunch of metadata together, wire it to a model, and it's going to work. But I think in the end, what needs to happen is that your agents, humans, need to work on the same context layer, right? It has to have information around what's available, what data is available, how can I access it, all of that in one place. So when we talk about X context and X governance, this is the context layer for the agentic runtime. No matter whether whether your users are accessing this data through xCompute or your agents are accessing it, it works through the same layer, right? So the rules you put for your users, for example, if Ashwin cannot access this data, then an agent written by Ashwin cannot access this data. And it is governed, at the layer where the data access is going to happen automatically. You really don't have to do anything. And so what we want to show you today is how you can actually just bring any data, cloud, on-prem, as context into xCompute. So we're going to register a source, we're going to query, and then we're going to show you how a policy reinforcement is done in about 2 minutes. So if you remember, we bought a cluster on board. Now we want to bring data on board, right? So you bought compute on board. Now you want to bring data on board. Which data do you want to bring on board? You want to bring in maybe some Snowflake instance that you have. So you're going to go to our X catalog, install a Meta Lake. Just give it a name. We're going to name it after the conference. Go ahead, just bring it up and add a new catalog. Now, when you add a new catalog here, what it's going to do is that our technology allows you to bring all your metadata into one place, right? So whether you're on-prem and you have Hive, you have Teradata, or you're on cloud, you have Snowflake, you have S3, you have Kafka, it doesn't matter what you have. You can bring all this context on board in one place, and then that's it. It gets registered, and now all of this context is available to AI, right? So we're going to just do a simple use case. So our user is going to write a query here, as simple as that. So the catalog which was just onboarded is already available in the system. User is going to go ahead and write a query. Now, the agents, when they run, they are also going to be accessing data, right? And it's the same flow. In this case, a human is physically using the AI editor, but when it comes to agents, they're going to use it in a headless way. So our layer where you're looking at governance, essentially, you can go ahead, create a policy, right? Just pick a name, then go ahead and select just the onboarded Snowflake, which you just bought on board, right, for autonomous. Go ahead, select the kind of policy that you want to give. And in this case, we are just going to deny another user from using this, this catalog. So if you see here, there are users, there are also service users. So you can have humans operating the policy. You can also have agents, which will essentially not work with human identity, but some sort of service access or service policy that is being provided. We're going to log in as another user, go ahead and try to run the same query. And you will see that immediately this access has been essentially blocked, right? So that's it. So governance is inbuilt into the xLake platform. You can govern agents, you can govern users in the same essential fabric. Now, this is super exciting. I think this is where things get really, really interesting. So we talked about how you can bring infrastructure on board, and now this assumes that everybody has infrastructure lying around, but it's usually not true, right? You have some infrastructure, you have some capacity on-prem, you have some capacity on the cloud, but you really don't want to just spin up capacity without really utilizing it. So Cloudburst is essentially xLake's compute's capacity on tap. And it works across all cloud platforms. So the big three, of course, and you can bring any, and when I say any cloud layer, so whether you're on Linode, you're on DigitalOcean, you're on Akamai Cloud, you can be on VMware. As long as it can spin VMs, we can actually bring hybrid capacity on tap. And the way it works is that this is probably what we've built around this is the industry's first AI-based scheduling algorithm, right? And what it can do and it can figure out is essentially take a task. So if you have, let's say, an agent which is built in LangGraph, it's going to access data in a certain zone in AWS, or it's going to access data somewhere in GCP. Depends on who wrote the code. But our algorithm can actually profile that job, figure out where the capacity is available on cloud, spin up ephemeral capacity, immediately run the agent job, whatever you want to send it to it, and then basically bring it down. And it does it using an AI algorithm, which essentially not just takes care of capacity, but can also think of things like cost, data gravity. What is the best way to run this? And I think the best way it is, we can show it to you. Essentially, you submit a job. It doesn't matter what job you submit. And the AI is going to essentially figure out where we can send this job and how we can run it, right? So this is a short demo. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up a job which was run. So there's a fraud analytics agent that we wrote. Going to press the AI run. Of course, this can be done automatically. Now, what ends up happening is that all this information, remember I talked about xObserve, we have all the metrics, we have all the information, all capacity layer. Everything has been sent to an AI algorithm, and basically it's gone and figure out that I have a 94% confidence that this data is sitting in US East 1. I'm going to pick up Spot. I have all this data, information, lineage. I'm going to pick up this compute target because I know that the data is in AWS. I'm going to pick up the history of all the runs which have happened and basically go and say that I can run this job on AWS US East 1 in Spot mode, and it's going to cost $2 or $20 or $200 in one go. And when you actually essentially go and run this, it's going to go and essentially ask our Cloudburst agent on the cloud to create capacity on the fly in about a couple of minutes, register it back into the compute plane, schedule the job, and execute it, right? And there is no manual intervention required. So what this essentially does, it stitches all your capacity, whether you're on-prem or on cloud, into one layer where everything is available on tap. So if you have an agent, you don't know where to run it, you don't need to know where to run it. The system will run it based on where the data is, where it can access it, where it's cheapest to run, and where it's fastest to run. And I think all of this leads to what the whole agentic runtime is all about and how does all of it work. I think what you saw earlier is that there is now with xLake compute, there is a infinitely scalable compute fabric which is stitched across anywhere you have capacity, right? Number two, you have context. You have all the context about all your data governed with the same authority as you would do for humans. And number three is that you have placement by AI, which decides where can I run this agent, where can I run this task, where is it cheap, where do we have capacity. And an agentic runtime essentially needs all these layers, but it needs one more thing. And this is something which we have just built over the last year. What we realized is that most agent harnesses, right? You can take Claude Code, you can pick up Rook Code, you can take Cursor. All of them are some sort of agent harnesses. And they are coding agents. And you can have other agent harnesses. You can have one for design. They all need to, at some point in their life cycle, execute code, because code is how you express workflows. It's easier to express workflows in code, and that's why the biggest use case of agent harnesses AI is agentic AI coding. And so with xLake Compute, we are also launching xLake sandboxes, which are key infrastructure for any agent to run. Now, if you ever used Claude Code or used ChatGPT, when you asked for of something a little bit complex, you would see that it will start writing code. It will writing code, and the way it does it is that it launches as kind of a sandbox in the cloud and it runs code there. Now, you're an enterprise. You can't have your sandboxes launched in the cloud somewhere and send your data being sent there, and it's all untrusted code, so you can't trust it. But with xLake Sandbox, the same infrastructure which provides your data applications, which governs it, provides you the sandboxing technology as well. So essentially, you bring your own harness. It doesn't matter. We're not going to give you another chatbot. You can bring whatever harness you have. You can attach it to the xLake Sandbox through our infrastructure API. And the xLake runtime is going to make sure that now with this harness, you can actually deploy your agents in about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how complex it is, right? So this is what's going to happen. So if you don't have the whole xLake agentic workflow, then you got to do all of this work. You got to figure out, how to build it, where to run the sandbox. How do you give access to data? Do you have an environment, like a test environment, where you run it before you can actually upgrade it to production? Or you can use the xLake agentic workflow, and all you need to do, literally, is prompt it, build it, and ship it. One shot. And so I have two demos for you with this. And we're going to use a commonly used harness. So we picked up VS Code with Rook Code installed. That's our agentic harness. Plugged in xLake agentic workflow. And the first thing we want to do is we want to take an agent, a real agent, an enterprise quality agent, from prompt to production. And the way we want to do it is that the prompt essentially says that I want to build an agent with a technology like LangGraph, which everybody uses, which should analyze some data set. That's what the xLake platform is all about, and essentially send some sort of information. So this is the agent harness. And this is the prompt. This basically says that, hey, use LangGraph, create an agent, do this, send an email, create a PPT, all of that stuff. And that's all. And of course, we're going to have a timer to show you how long this takes. So the first thing when this is going to happen, when this starts, is essentially it's going to contact the xLake runtime and essentially go and say that, hey, somebody has asked me to deliver an agent. Now I need to deliver it into our runtime. So the first thing it's going to do on your left side, it's going to scroll a little fast, but I'll walk you through it, is essentially tell the xLake Compute runtime that I need a sandbox because somebody has asked me to write code. Somebody has asked me to write LangGraph Python code to create an agent. I need a sandbox. The sandbox is provided on the infrastructure which is available. So you can get it on the cloud, you can get it on-prem, you can get it on your laptops, as long as you can run our substrate. And once you're done with all of this, you essentially go ahead, build the agent. It's going to take about 15, 20 minutes to build this agent for this system. And then once it's built, once the agent is essentially built, in this case now it's done, it said, hey, I just finished all this. And then we asked it to just deploy it into XDP, that's it. And so your agent now, the LangGraph fraud analytics agent, has been already deployed by this harness right into XDP. You can go ahead and just run it. And the same primitives apply. So when this agent runs, it's going to figure out where the data is. It's going to do your schema discovery. It's going to contact the governance agent, figure out if everything is all right, and essentially deliver this experience. So if you have agents that you want to run today, you don't need to figure out where to run it, how do you run it. You just need to tell us what you want to run, and xLake is going to do the rest. right? And so this agent got executed. Here is the email that it produced, all this suspicion transactions, what's going to go on. It also went ahead and created a very nice PPT. It's going to put in all this information, 20 pages worth of fraudulent transactions mapped down, saying, hey, this is what you need to do. Here is all that you need to look at, and that's it. It's done through one prompt in 20 minutes. And the last thing, which is very similar, but I think it's important to know, is that as enterprises start using AI more and more, they're going to be building a lot of apps. And one pattern that I've noticed in our company is that everybody is ready, right? They're all on the keyboards, everybody has Cloud Code, everybody's got the max plan, and whatever you ask for, there's a dashboard ready. And I feel that's going to happen. Nobody is going to sit around, write queries, make a lot of joins here and there, create a dashboard. It takes 2 weeks. Who wants to do all that? So the same way that you deliver an agent into the xLake platform, you can deliver business applications as well. So we're going to start the clock again. Here, this prompt basically says that, hey, instead of an agent, I need a dashboard. What does this dashboard do? This dashboard is something around, similar around, fraudulent transactions and customers. And all I said is, hey, you need to also have drill downs in this application. Make sure it's complete and all the nice prompts that you give. And it follows the exact same process, but instead of now asking for an agentic sandbox, it's going to ask for an application sandbox, which is again going to be provided by XCompute. It's going to be wired into whatever harness you're using. The AI is going to start generating code, right? It works exactly how you would work locally. Our technology takes care of it. There's absolutely no leakage, completely SSL, and that's it. Your dashboard is ready. You can go ahead, put this out, copy it, put it out. And if you see it, it's entirely giving you this experience where it's running locally, right? So this has built your entire application. Here is all the alerts that you need. Here are all the transactions. This is what happened. We analyzed everything. Everything is drill downable. You can actually go and connect whatever you want to do. Check it out, test it out. Everything is okay. I don't want to bring it to prod yet, but maybe I want to bring it to a test cluster. Maybe it's ready enough that I want to show people, get some feedback, and then promote it into production. So here you go ahead and just say, let's deploy to XDP as a Python app. Let's not run it yet. I'll run it myself. And that's it. So the system is going to figure out how do you contact XDP, how do you load the credentials, how do you access it, what really needs to happen. Essentially, I ran into a place where the context got filled up. So at this point, it's condensing its context, and then essentially go ahead and deploy this, and you're essentially done, right? So if you have a dashboard that you want to build, what are you going to do? Are you going to write queries and make joins and drag and drop and Power BI and Looker, whatever? You can get your insight in about 10 minutes, right? If you really know what to do, just bring up your harness, connect XDP, write your prompts, get your business applications onboarded and deployed on the same infrastructure which runs your agent, which runs your Spark job, which runs your SQL queries, can now run your agents and can run your AI applications absolutely integrated end to end. And that's all I had. Thank you so much. I hope you liked what we've been building for the last 1 year. And would love to ask Ramon to come on board.
All right, how's everyone doing? All right. Well, that was an incredible demo by Ashwin and an amazing effort by the Acceldata engineering team. I really just watching it again just always blows my mind. So what did we announce today? So a press release went out today. I'm delighted to be able to represent Acceldata here to key on 3 things, and 2 of which you have not yet seen yet, so more excitement coming along the way. So you've seen the XLake autonomous data and AI platform in action. There's a lot to it. There will be a demo later on today, which will show you even more depth, and our field CTO, Chandra, will also dive into the context of XStore, the catalog, and all of the capabilities there. But super exciting is that Raghu, one of our co-founders, later after lunch, will be showing AI observability. So now you have the ability to run agents, agentic runtime, harness compute capacity from wherever. What Ashwin has showed is all of the environments. Now, how do you observe the behavior of these agents? How do you keep them on the straight and narrow? This is the question on everybody's mind, and we're going to be showing you the capabilities of AI observability. And then last but not least, a year ago, Joe Murphy and I stood up here and unveiled agentic data management. It's exactly 1 year old today, so happy birthday to ADM. Thank you very much. We're delighted to be able to show you the next generation of ADM. ADM was so popular that Gartner has now said that it's the #1 trending data and analytics topic for 2026. I was just in Gartner London, and it's the #1 topic, and it is our product that defined it. Super excited. So the demo that we're going to do for you today, we're going to do several demos, and it's going to be centered around what Ashwin has already shown you. It'll be a financial services use case, and it will be the autonomous bank. So many of you who are in the financial services industry will see a lot of capabilities that will deal with what Ashwin just showed, the hybrid data estate, increasing data reliability. With our ADM demo, Joe and I will be showing autonomous compliance and governance, and then all of this wrapped into reducing your operating costs. So this is not going to cost you more, it's going to cost you less. Now, you've already seen what Ashwin has demoed. As I mentioned, Chandra will be diving deeper into this again with Ashwin later on today with the xObserve capabilities, xGovern, our metadata catalog, and the xCompute. What Raghu, our other co-founder, will be demonstrating is AI and agent observability. Now, this is key because of the Trinity, the third leg of the stool. Acceldata is already the only observability platform that does both pipeline and data observability at petabyte scale. Now, as we add an endpoint for AI and agent observability, the circle will be complete. And then agentic data management. This has revolutionized how people interact with data, with insights, with reports. Being able to do things basically at the speed of business. Combining the intelligence of LLMs with natural English language has democratized the access to insights from your business teams, technical teams, and really close the gap. So we'll be showing autonomous compliance. We'll also be showing a hot topic of agentic data product creation. That's going to be magical. And then what Ashwin showed, MCP server and agent-to-agent communication, we're going to be showing integrations with ServiceNow, Salesforce, and Reltio from a master data management platform perspective. So to bring it all together, Rohit, with his visionary keynote, talked about our focus on being able to create an xLake compute substrate and a control plane. What you'll see later on today, I hope you really enjoy, but it's the next frontier in innovation. I'm very proud to be standing here to be able to reveal it to you. This is going to be a tremendous day. Let's move ahead. Thank you so much.